Hello YouTube, welcome to another video. It's a Saturday night. I don't think I've ever made a YouTube video on a Saturday night. It's not usually something I do, then it's usually a Sunday morning. This is not important to the video at all. Moving right along, in regards to the Patreon, I don't know if I've shown you guys this. Maybe I have, but this is a pile of the transcriptions that's now building up. There's stacks of them there, and I reckon I've done another 3 or 4 since, so you can have this all for yourself for just a couple bucks a month on my Patreon, and there is stuff going up every week. Check it out, okay? It's a good thing. Really appreciate that. Thanks for your support so much. It makes a really big difference. Let's get into the video. So this is in essence a continuation of the theory stuff, but I wanted to spice it up a little bit. I've got a transcription of what I played in the very intro, because often I'll play things in an introduction. I'm just shutting my laptop so it's not flat after when I want to actually post this. So yeah, I often play at the start of a video, and then I talk about the concepts that I use, and quite often people ask then for almost an exact tab of what I'm doing. Sometimes that's not really the point. You know, I try to give you guys the concept so you can go away and do your own thing. But I also have learnt heaps of things over the years directly, and it's influenced my style. So I thought, why not give you a bit of both today? Now, in regards to the major scales and all that kind of stuff, let's just refresh. If we talk about a major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. I wasn't talking about the fingers or the frets there, I was talking about the tones. I also don't have 7 fingers on one hand. I've got 6. No, I'm kidding. So, not that there's anything wrong with that. That's, in fact, wouldn't we all like an extra finger for guitar playing? So now when we play that major scale, now obviously you don't hear that scale a heck of a lot in the style of music that a lot of us are listening to, which is what's made you guys that have stuck with the theory right from that major scale through the minor scale through the arpeggios more recently in the chords. This is where it's going to pay off for you guys, and it's what has made you guys awesome and dedicated, because you don't necessarily hear that in the music you're listening to, but now we're starting to get there. So the major scale gives you that reference point to then say what is happening instead of, or maybe what's not actually happening, and that's a really useful thing you're about to see. So in the little performance I did at the start there, which the tab is on my Patreon, okay, yeah, anyway, I've talked about that enough. What we're doing, we are flattening the 7th degree. Is what we would play in a major scale. Is what we're going to be using today. Okay, but I'm going to move a little quicker today, because there's something I mentioned in my last video that actually 2 or 3 people have spoken to me about, you know, straight after. And I thought, well, let's jump on this, right? So not only are we going to use the flat 7, okay, we're also going to use the minor third and the major third. So the little thing that I performed at the start is called Mixolydian and the minor third. All right, it's just a little thing that I wrote, like a little ditty or an etude, as you might call it as a classical musician, to help you navigate that scale or this concept that I'm bringing to the table. Okay, I don't necessarily have a name for it. But let's just call it Mixolydian minor third, all right, because it makes sense. Let me explain. We've got the major scale, we've got Mixolydian, which implies a flat 7, okay? Let's do that in the top octave as well. It should be very easy for you to work that out in the first octave. Second octave might be a little trickier, but I'll walk you through. So we start on the G, that's the 1, the 2, the major third, which is now the 4th fret of the 3rd string, okay? Then we've got the 4th degree, which is the C. Now I move my first finger to the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. That's the D, or 5th degree. 6th degree, flat 7, and we're at the root note again. So if I played that in one fell swoop, shift there, Of course, we can grab the 2 again, the A, G, A, minor third's there. Oh, hang on, we're not there yet, sorry. Major third is there, okay? And that's as far as we're gonna go today, more or less, for the time being. So what I'm talking about here is now incorporating the minor third as well as the major third. So when we use that flat 7, for example, we're eliminating the natural 7. Okay? Not that you can't use it chromatically, as in stepping through, like that actually sounds great. But just for the purpose of the exercise, let's just talk about playing that flat 7. But with the minor third, we're actually going to introduce it to the scale whilst keeping the major third. So, okay. Now, another thing that I kind of like to do a lot, and you will when you're playing this style if you want that sound. Okay, so think Jim Heath from Reverend Horton Heat, Brian Setzer from the Stray Cats, geez, who else? You know, Carl Perkins and a lot of those, you know, like the originators, a lot of the blues guys, and then even dare I say it, jazz players. You know, some of the jazz blues stuff, it's really in that pocket. Something that you'll see a lot is ejecting the 2 from these runs and these ideas. So we might end up with something that looks more like this. Let's skip the 2, get rid of it, don't play it. Okay. Okay, so I played it up there, it sounds good there, but it's just something you don't always have to play. You don't always have to play that. You also don't always have to play the 4th degree in an idea. You might do something like this. Okay. Right, so what I'm saying is that C natural there, we don't need it. Let's skip to the D, go straight to the flat 7, root note. Let's do it in the upper octave. So I'm going root note, flat 3rd, natural 3rd, skip the C, which is the 4th degree, straight to the 5th degree, okay. Flat 7, maybe, so I even skip the 6. So what you can see very quickly, I don't want you to be sitting there and saying, whoa, what are you playing? What are you playing exactly? I want to tab that. You can if you like. That's not 100% the point. The point's really, look how quickly we take something that's a basic modification of a major scale, you know, and I gave you a concept to work with, right? A flat 3rd and a natural 3rd and a flat 7. And then we started not playing things within the scale, and it just starts to sound really cool. So, okay, so, and it starts to look a little bit like an arpeggio. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, what is the Mixolydian? Well, let me show you something really cool. If you go back to quite a few videos now, and I don't expect you to because it is a lot of work, I'll admit, and okay, I'm just going to have to be honest and say this, a lot of people just don't want to do that kind of work. I think if you're really serious about the instrument, you should. And that kind of work that I'm talking about is learning your keys and learning your notes, okay? And I say that because when I look at the key of G, and I ask that question, you know, I say, what is a Mixolydian scale? I can look at that straight away and say, well, that's from the key of C, okay? That scale there without the F sharp actually belongs to the key of C. So we've got G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's just the key of C. No sharps or flats, okay? I went through all that in one of the earlier videos, and it has less views than pretty much all of my other videos because people, maybe they're not that interested in learning it. And that's okay too. But let me explain why it is useful to learn, because I can look at that scale, know I'm playing in the key of C, and then all over the fretboard, while someone else might be playing a G note, so I know all over the fretboard it's just the key of C. Now, if you've worked on all your major scales all over the board, it suddenly makes it easy to play a mode that sounds like it's complicated, but it's not, because it's just the key of C all over the board. And I can't tell you how much work I've done on every single key on the fretboard. Some I still suck at. Don't ask me to play E flat minor. Well, I do that, you know, in some gigs in the jazz stuff, and it's still hard, you know, but hey, it's if I really sit down, I sort of know what to do. So that's where the theory is really useful. But anyway, I don't want to keep boring you with that. Let's come back to just talking about where we are. So I know by looking at that, that's the key of C. But here's the thing, right? If you learn if you were to look at where this Mixolydian comes from in terms of a numbers game, we can pretty much say that the Mixolydian scale is built from the 5th degree of a major scale. You should understand this, okay? You should understand this. Let me explain. So if I was to take G, for example, and say G, A, B, C, D, keep in mind G major, right? So we're going to have an F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. Now, if I was to take that and take the 5th degree, that's the key of, that's the D, sorry, not the key of D, it's D. And I continue playing in the key of G from a D, and I make that my focal point, that's a Mixolydian. Why? Because the 7th degree from D would be a C sharp, but we're getting a C natural. Okay, let's have a look. Instead of, so this is how modes are derived. The basic modes all just belong to what we could call a parent major. Okay, so this is a little bit of a baptism of fire in terms of how I've introduced modes. I probably might break this in a little bit more slowly, but I know there's a few of you guys have been watching the theory videos who, it's come up a couple of times, questions about modes. So now I'm sort of throwing you in the deep end, but I've probably gone a little bit deeper than I wanted to into that discussion. I kind of wanted to just focus on that exercise and how to start getting that really cool major country blues-ish rockabilly sound. So let's keep moving with that. If you're sitting along and you're hating me for getting into all that, I do apologize. But now we're going to keep moving along with where I got the ideas within that. So we have our Mixolydian scale from the key of G, okay, which I sort of walked you through at the start. I talked about how you can add the minor third. Okay, and slide into that natural third. Do it up here as well. Okay, and now I'm going to show you something else. We can take the same concept and we can do it from C. So now we're actually going to use C Mixolydian. Okay, thinking in terms of a blues and what chords we'd be using over this, we would use, okay, a G7 or at least just a G major, and by playing that flat 7, we're kind of telling the listener, hey, this is blues, this is a dominant 7, right? So even if you don't play that dominant 7, it's when you start riffing that way, it's totally cool. The only issue would be is if someone was playing a major 7, you're not going to want to use that flat 7 now. That's going to become a little bit awkward. It's probably kind of like when two people rock up at a party who do not like each other. It just doesn't really work. So from here, from the C, it's going to look like this: C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. And at this point in a typical blues progression, you'd be thinking of a C7 chord, right? Okay. So that's the standard movement in a blues, is moving to the 4 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the 4th degree. Build a 7th from that. Okay, we could just play a regular C7. So think a C major chord. Add your pinky to the 3rd fret on the 3rd string. Or you could do a 9 chord. 2, 1, 3, 4. Look, this part here, if you're not familiar with, you're probably getting out of your depth. Like those basic chords, if you're not sure of them, it is going to be a little out of your depth, unfortunately. But maybe go away and then like Google search like dominant 7 chords and do a little bit of work on that and come back. It'll be worth it. Or blues. Look up just basic blues. Okay. So we're going to the 4 chord. We're doing C7. This is the scale that we can use to match that movement. We've got another octave from here. Here's the C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. Okay. Alright, now, everything you do there, you can take it up 2 frets. Okay, that exact idea, you can take it up 2 frets and play Mixolydian again from D. Okay, exactly the same shape. Okay, so we'd be going D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C natural, there's your flat 7, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. Now in each of those two box positions there from the root 5, or box, sort of moving positions, if we take the third and we add the flattened third, we're now using that same concept, okay? So 1, 2, flattened third, third, flattened third, third. Then from D, there's our flat third, third. So 1, 2, flat third, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, root 5, flat 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, root. Okay. Now, now we can go through that again if you like, and you can try taking out the 2. Okay, try taking out the 6. Try using the 2, and not using the, using the 6 instead of the flat 7. This is up to you now. I'm just giving you this basic framework, and then if you have a look at that exercise, at the little thing I played at the start, you'll start to see these ingredients. You'll start to see the flat 7 being used and certain things. Now, one more little tip, right? In terms of the way I was thinking when I put that together, because I guess ultimately this is what this has become, is really an analysis of that little piece of music. And analysing music is really how I always learn different styles or get into different things. Now, one of the most useful things, and if we're talking about Chuck Berry and guys like that, and all the guys I mentioned before, the minor to major third thing, this really weird thing happens where you don't often see the major third and then the minor third. It's nearly always even coming backwards, right? We seem to, even when we're descending, move from the flat third to the natural third. That seems to be a hallmark of these rockabilly licks and these blues licks and everything. I mean, you look at Johnny B. Good. It's always going back, and that's in B flat, by the way. It's always going back to that minor third and rolling into the major third. And another really cool thing is you often see the 4, then the flat 3, and then the natural 3. It's almost like you're surrounding the note that you want and then falling in the middle, like thinking like 4, flat 3, natural 3. So like 4, flat 3, natural 3. Right back to, I mean, it's like Mystery Train, right? So that's in E, minor third, major third. Get the 4, back to the minor third, back to the major third. So that's a real common thing. If you're putting licks together, something will work really nicely about no matter how you do it. Even if you start adding the blues note, like a blues scale, then roll that minor third to major third. Okay, it's a huge thing. It just works. And that minor third to major third doesn't just work with Mixolydian like we've been talking about. It actually works, even in a minor pentatonic, like a rock and roll situation. I guess as long as you're playing over a major chord, like AC/DC style, for example, like use that minor to major third. In the midst of your minor pentatonic, it works really, really well. So I guess I've covered a lot of ground really quickly in this video. I almost feel the need to apologize because I haven't broken things down as closely, but we are starting to get to a point now where I'm following on from all those theory videos, and hopefully there's enough prior knowledge now, because I'm not putting this out here without having any resources for you to work off to get to a point where you should loosely be able to understand what I'm talking about. Plus the transcriptions there for the members on the Patreon, and that will really help too because you'll be able to look through. So that's the end of today's lesson. So what I want you to go away and work on is it's basically a blues, right? So it's a blues with a potential of a 1 chord, 4 chord, and a 5 chord, and your options for improvising over each one of those chords with a Mixolydian and a minor third type thing, removing a couple of notes and trying to get that rockabilly sound. This is starting to really approach the kind of things that I see in, like I said, Carl Perkins, Jim Heath from Reverend Horton Heat, Brian Setzer, Chuck Berry, Scotty Moore, all those guys. There's the sort of little bits and pieces I've picked up over the years of spending a lot of time on that stuff. So I hope you really enjoyed it. Please check out the Patreon. Also, comment on the video. You know, hit like, share it with people. It all really helps. But yeah, please, you sharing it is probably the best thing that can happen and helps a lot. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you again soon.